So I had an email recently that got me thinking. Someone wrote in and said, I've been on a GLP-1 for 6 months. I'm eating less than I ever have. I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything you spoke about. And I've lost almost no weight. My doctor just wants to put up my GLP-1 dose. And nobody can tell me why the GLP-1 and the eating plan that I'm doing is not working. And I had a very strong feeling that her thyroid wasn't right. This condition is called hypothyroidism, and it's actually a very common condition. I'm just going to tell you quickly a little tip. When I was studying a million years ago, the way that I remember the difference between hypo and hyper was, think about it like this. Hypo, you can rhyme with low, and hyper, you can sort of rhyme with higher, right? That's how to remember it. So when you're going to your doctor and you're like, I think I might have hypothyroidism, and they're looking at you and you're overweight and they're like, nah. Because a lot of people get that mixed up and they write to me all the time saying, I think I'm hyperthyroid. Anyway, this is actually a very common condition. It's more common than any of us think. So today I'm going to give you some nutrition information to ensure that you're getting all the ingredients to support your thyroid function, which will also support your metabolism so that you can keep your metabolism firing on all cylinders. That's the goal. If we haven't already met, my name's Gina. I'm a qualified nutritionist for 20 years. And if you'd like to get some more information to boost your metabolism and get healthy through science-backed nutrition principles, consider subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate it. And you might even want to share this video with a friend that could use the information as well. So here's the thing. Most of us are just handed a GLP-1 prescription, or maybe even shipped out the GLP-1 medication with almost no real consult from a doctor or a telehealth clinic before we get our medication. I know my doctor didn't give me any advice on diet or what to watch out for or even side effects before giving me the prescription. I didn't get a blood test, and most people I talk to don't get blood tests. They're given no real consult before they're given their prescription. And there you go, just go and take the GLP-1. Go jab yourself. I would like to know, actually, in the comments, did you get a consult from your physician about diet, side effects, or what could go wrong, all that sort of stuff when you were given your prescription? I would love to know. So we're walking into a GLP-1 journey blindly without a full picture of our current health state most of the time. And the problem is, when we start a GLP-1 medication, if your thyroid is underperforming, it doesn't matter how good the medication is, your metabolism is suppressed at a level that the medication just cannot address. And it's as simple as that. You're fighting two battles and really only treating one of them. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what your thyroid does, why it's the missing piece for so many women on a GLP-1, and the specific foods and lifestyle changes that you can make to support your thyroid function and your metabolic rate. Your thyroid is a small butterfly-shaped gland sitting in the base of your throat. And in spite of its size, because it is tiny, it controls your entire metabolic rate. It will control how fast or how slowly you burn energy. So in other words, calories. I'll put a picture up here so that you can see what I'm talking about while I talk about this, because I find it really helpful. I am a visual learner, so I find it very helpful if I can see things in action whilst I'm learning it. So I just thought maybe that would help you as well. So the thyroid also dictates how warm you feel, or how your hair grows, how your bowels move, how clearly you think, and how your mood is regulated. I know, even our mood. When it's working really well, you barely notice it. When it's underperforming, which is what we call hypothyroidism, remember, low, everything shuts down, everything slows down. Weight goes up, energy crashes, hair thins out, you feel cold when everybody else feels completely fine, brain fog sets in, constipation becomes a problem, and low mood that you just can't explain. So when you think about all of these vague symptoms that I have just spoken about, you might think, oh, I put my mood and my low energy and my brain fog down to menopause. That's really common. And when you combine menopause with a GLP-1, a lot of people will have all of these symptoms and they'll say, well, the constipation is from the GLP-1. My moodiness is from my menopause. And look, it might very well be. I'm not saying all of us have thyroid issues. I'm just saying that the symptoms are so vague that it's really hard for a physician or a doctor to put their finger on exactly what's going on. And if you're not getting a differential diagnosis, so differential diagnosis is where a doctor says, okay, we've got all of these symptoms and it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. So you might have 5 different conditions and then the doctor will run some tests to figure out which one is the correct diagnosis. That's what we need to remember, that the symptoms are so vague that it would actually be a situation of getting a differential so that you can then pinpoint what's going on. So we need to remember that hypothyroidism is so common, and particularly in women over 40. And a significant number of cases go undiagnosed or untreated for many years on end. Why? Because standard testing only measures one marker called THS. That stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. So when you're talking to your doctor, remember this part. THS alone does not give the full picture of what your thyroid is actually doing. Most doctors these days, well, they all know this, but some will test it depending on what country you're in. Some will test for other things as well, but some don't. They'll just do the standard THS. There's an important connection between your hypothyroidism and your insulin resistance. And these two conditions frequently appear together, each one of them feeding into the other in a cycle, which means if you're on a GLP-1 for weight loss or to manage your blood sugars and you have an underactive thyroid, it could actually be working against everything that you're trying to achieve, right? So let's talk about why GLP-1 medication on its own does not solve this issue. GLP-1 meds do 2 things brilliantly. So they reduce our appetite, we know that. And most importantly, and this is the part that you really need to hear, GLP-1 medication improves your insulin sensitivity. So it is actively trying to reduce insulin resistance, which is why I'm always talking about selecting your carbohydrates very, very carefully. So GLP-1 meds are effective drugs, of course, we know. But here's what they cannot do. They don't address metabolism directly or thyroid hormone production or conversion. Not even close. These are completely separate systems, and this is where it gets really interesting from a nutritional science perspective, because most people don't realize there are actually 2 thyroid hormones that matter, T3 and T4. So T4 is the inactive form. Your thyroid produces it, but your body can't actually use it. T3 is the active form, the one that actually drives your metabolism. And to get from T4 to T3, your body has to convert it, mostly in the liver and partly in the gut. This should prick your ears up a little bit if you've ever suspected that you've got gut health issues or even fatty liver disease. Many people, particularly women who have been dieting or who are overly stressed, who have gut issues, or who are nutrient depleted, cannot convert T4 to T3 efficiently. So this is why it's so very important that you're getting the right nutrients especially while you're on a GLP-1, because it interferes with everything, as you're about to see. So they might have completely normal T4 levels on a blood test and still be functionally hypothyroid because the active hormone just isn't being produced in sufficient amounts. The nutrients required for that conversion are selenium, zinc, iron, iodine, very important, vitamin D and B12. And chronic calorie restriction, exactly what we're doing with low appetite when we're on a GLP-1, can quietly, in the background, deplete all of these nutrients simultaneously. There's also something called reverse T3, where instead of converting T4 into active T3, the body converts it into a blocking form that actually sits in the T3 receptor and does nothing. Now that's just cruel, isn't it? This means under chronic stress, under eating and prolonged dieting will affect your reverse T3. It's essentially the body hitting the metabolic brakes, and no medication can override that. Only nutrition and lifestyle can shift that if that's what's going on. So let's talk about food, because every single nutrient your thyroid needs to function properly and to convert T4 into T3 to the active form comes from what you eat. And this is the part of the conversation that changes everything. So selenium is probably the single most important nutrient for thyroid function and the one most people are deficient in. It's essential for that T4 to T3 conversion. And it also protects your thyroid gland from oxidative damage. The best source is Brazil nuts. Just 2 or 3 Brazil nuts a day can give you your entire day's requirement of selenium. But this is really important too. Don't go and eat a handful each and every day. Selenium has a relatively narrow window between being helpful and harmful. 2 to 3 nuts, that's all you need. Other great sources include sardines, tuna, eggs, and sunflower seeds. Zinc is also essential for thyroid hormone production and conversion as well. Oysters, if you're into them, are the richest source. But if oysters aren't your thing, beef, pumpkin seeds, and chickpeas all contribute meaningfully. And zinc also supports immune function as well, insulin signaling, and your gut health. Your thyroid literally cannot make thyroid hormone without iodine. This one's really important. It is the raw material that builds T3 and T4. White fish, eggs, and dairy are great sources that you can have every single day. Seaweed and kelp are extremely high in iodine, but this is another one where more is not better. Too much iodine can actually worsen thyroid function and trigger autoimmune flare-ups in people with things like Hashimoto's. Please don't go overboard on eating seaweed supplements thinking that, you're pepping up your thyroid. You just need a little bit. Iron is often completely overlooked in thyroid conversion pathway, but it is critically important as well, particularly for women who may still be menstruating or have been eating a very restrictive diet. For example, like on a vegan diet. Iron deficiency impairs the very enzyme that converts T4 to T3. Red meat is obviously the most bioavailable source. And if you mix that with a little bit of vitamin C, say some lemon juice or lime juice, or even chili flakes are a good way to increase the acidity, because that's what you're looking for, is the acidity to increase iron absorption. Lentils and spinach are excellent plant sources, and you definitely need vitamin C with that. There's also a well-established link between vitamin D deficiency and autoimmune thyroid disease, particularly Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Fatty fish, egg yolks, and of course, UV exposure. Mushrooms, these all provide some vitamin D, but many people still don't get enough from food alone, and this is absolutely one worth testing for, because vitamin D does so many things too. And obviously I live in Queensland where the sun is always shining. We actually celebrate for rain here. So I'm getting plenty of vitamin D. But if you're in a cold environment where it's snowing for half the year, for example, maybe think about supplements. Go and get a test, get your doctor to test you, and then maybe talk to the doctor about doing a vitamin D supplement, because it does affect so many things. These days, they call it a hormone, not a vitamin. So there you go. And it's fat soluble, so it does store. So let's talk about omega-3 fatty acids, because chronic inflammation directly impairs our thyroid function as well. And omega-3s are your most powerful dietary anti-inflammatory tool that you can use. Salmon, mackerel, and sardines 3 times a week, which I would never do. Flax seeds and walnuts I would do, and I would prefer those, but they're really good sources as well. And of course, omega-3 fish oil supplements. I take them every single day because they're great for the brain and great for so many other things, not just our thyroid. And here's one that really surprises people: gut health. A significant portion of T4 to T3 conversion actually happens in the gut. An unhealthy microbiome with low diversity, which is the key to a healthy microbiome, directly impairs that conversion. So maybe look into eating some fermented foods alongside a diverse range of vegetables, which are not just good for digestion, they are actually supporting your thyroid hormone activation every single day. Now let's talk about what to limit. And there are some important nuances here that I really want to make sure that you understand. Raw cruciferous vegetables, so things like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, or cabbage, and even Brussels sprouts, contain compounds called goitrogens that can interfere with thyroid hormone production. But here's the really critical nuance. That is, cooking neutralizes the goitrogens which affect this whole process. So please don't hear somewhere in the media that never gives you the full picture, by the way, that cruciferous vegetables are going to destroy your thyroid hormone if you've already got thyroid issues. It's not true. Just cook them. That's all you need to do. It's the raw ones in large quantities, things like raw green smoothies that actually will interfere with your thyroid. So things like kale going into green smoothies. And that's really where the issue is. Soy products can interfere with thyroid hormone absorption as well, particularly if you're taking thyroid medication. So the timing matters. Soy consumed close to the medication can reduce how much the body absorbs. Excess sugar and ultra-processed foods drives inflammation. So again, please lower your carbohydrate intake to make sure that you are getting your all-round good health. Of course, we also know that it worsens insulin resistance, stresses the adrenal glands as well, and it suppresses thyroid function through the cortisol pathway. For those with Hashimoto's thyroiditis specifically, which is the autoimmune form of hypothyroidism, there is a meaningful link between gluten sensitivity and thyroid antibody activity. Now, this isn't relevant for everyone, but if you've confirmed that you've got Hashimoto's, it's absolutely worth exploring with your doctor. So beyond food, let's look at lifestyle factors around thyroid health, which are just as important. And I want to make sure that we cover them because all of this works together. Thyroid hormone production follows a circadian rhythm, right? Which actually peaks during sleep. So circadian rhythm is like you could describe that as like the 24-hour cycle in a day. So chronic sleep deprivation directly suppresses thyroid function and T3 conversion. 7 to 9 hours of good quality sleep is genuinely considered thyroid medicine and is not optional. Chronic elevated cortisol from ongoing stress directly suppresses the conversion of T4 to T3 and promotes that reverse T3 production that we spoke about earlier. That's the form that's blocking the activated form on the cells. You can eat perfectly well and still have a suppressed thyroid function if you're chronically stressed. So it's really important that you address that as much as you possibly can. Exercise also needs to be a specific mention here because the wrong type of exercise can actually make things worse for hypothyroid women. Intense daily cardio raises cortisol, which suppresses T3 conversion. If you're already stressed, adding high-intensity cardio 7 days a week on top of that is totally the wrong move. Cardio is great for you, everything in context. Cardio is great for you. And ordinarily raising your cortisol through cardio for a perfectly healthy person who is well nourished is actually a good thing. But if you have hypothyroidism, it's not such a good thing. So maybe switch to lower cardio and add in some resistance training 2 or 3 times a week, preferably, which supports your metabolism and preserves your muscle mass as well. And walking, which is genuinely underrated for hypothyroidism. It lowers cortisol, it supports insulin sensitivity, and it doesn't tax the thyroid the same way that intense exercise can. And this one is counterintuitive for anyone trying to lose weight, but eating not enough suppresses your T3 production. And I would go even further and say eating not enough and not getting the right nutrients suppresses your thyroid even further. If you're on a GLP-1 and your appetite is very, very suppressed, making sure the food you do eat is nutrient-dense and sufficient is a must. It is literally how you keep your metabolism from working against you. So let's put all of this together. Here is what this looks like in practice every single day. Protein at every single meal to support T3 production and preserve muscle mass. 2 or 3 Brazil nuts for your selenium. Cooked vegetables, including a little bit of cruciferous vegetables. Omega-3 rich fish 3 or 4 times a week, if you can do that. If you're like me and you don't eat fish, maybe some supplements. Reduce or eliminate entirely, which is what I'd suggest, eliminate entirely processed foods and refined sugar. Add fermented foods for your gut and your thyroid. Resistance training a couple of times a week is great. Daily walks to reduce stress and get your muscle glucose sync going. And prioritize sleep so that everything else functions well. And where you can, reduce your stress. And please ask your doctor if you think that this relates to you. ask your doctor for a full thyroid panel, not just TSH, specifically for T3, T4, and reverse T3, and thyroid antibodies. If you're on metformin, ask for a B12 and iron as well, and vitamin D while you're there, you may as well. These are simple blood tests that give you an entirely different picture of what is actually happening inside your body. These are all changes that you can start from today. And when you stack everything together, the right nutrition, the right lifestyle, and the medication, the results are completely different. If you want to go a little bit deeper on the GLP-1 nutrition strategy, check out my video on breaking a weight plateau. I have linked that. And if you want personalized support, putting all of this together, my membership is also linked below. You might find that interesting. You can watch a video on that. And share this with somebody who needs to hear it, because there are a lot of women out there doing everything right and still worrying about why the GLP-1 is not working. Now you know one of the reasons that could be a contributing factor. And maybe you'd like to share this video with them. All right, I'll see you in one of these videos. See you in there.